here in the division of Davao del Norte.
Namamasko, suot ang masko, nakasanitize na ang kamay. I-minimize ang usapan, maaliwalas ang pagdarausan ng handaan.
Kahit tayo lang, tuloy ang saya, makikita sa mga mata. Salamat sa pag-iingat, ang lahat magpabakuna na. Oh, oh. Ligtas Christmas sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Damhin ang diwa ng pagdiriwang, biyaya sa bawat nilalang para sa Healthy Pilipinas.
Bakunado man, bawal gumamit ng boroton.
Mas malakas ang pananabik sa isa't isa, ngunit walang magpapaputok. Ligtas Christmas sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Damhin ang diwa ng pagdiriwang, biyaya sa bawat nilalang para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas.
Patuloy pa rin ang laban natin sa COVID-19. And together, we can beat the solusyon.
B. Bawal walang mask.
I. Isanitize sa mga kamay. Iwas hawak sa mga bagay.
D. Dumistansya ng 1 metro.
A. Alamin ang totoong impormasyon tungkol sa COVID-19.
Protektahan natin ang sarili at mga mahal sa buhay.
Be the solusyon sa COVID-19.
Best bakuna. Tara na, mag-res bakuna para bawas pangamba. Dahil sa res bakuna, bawat buhay ay mahalaga. Sa res bakuna, huwag ka patatalo sa pagsubok na ito. Ituloy natin ang laban, mayroon tayong paraan. Tuloy ang trabaho, tuloy ang pag-aaral. Para sa kapwa Pilipino, para sa ating mga mahal. Tara na, mag-res bakuna para bawas pangamba. Dahil sa res bakuna, bawat buhay ay mahalaga. Mag-res bakuna, mas protektado ang pamilya. Kasaganang mas hugas iwas, kinabukas ay maganda. Sa res bakuna. Laging handa. Laging handa. Baha, tagtuyot, sunog, lindol, bagyo. Mga kalamidad na likas sa ating mundo. Napapahamak ang buhay at kabuhayan. Kaya naman kailangan ng paghandaan.
Maging handa, maging alerto. Tungkulin to ng bawat mamamayan. Kaya tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat na maging laging handa. Laging handa. Lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na. Lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa.
Suriin mo mabuti ang iyong kapaligiran. Saan ka ba nakatira? Diyan ba ay bumabaha? Tuwing gamot, pagkain, kumot, pang sindi, first aid kit. Mga gamit panligtas ng buhay dapat mabitbit. At sakaling lumindol o sumabog ang bulkan, meron bang madadaanan palayo sa kasawian? Panahon na ay malupit at ang hangin hagupit. Mabuti na lang na tayo ay laging nakahanda.
Tara na, kilos na. Lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na. Lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa.
This message was brought to you by the Department of Education with the support of World Vision Development Foundation.
Kristanos! Ay mo ako! Kristanos!
mapigil ni naman. Maaabot lahat, lahat ng iyong inaasam. Kasipagan ng sabot, salat ka man sa kayamanan. Buksan ang pahina ng mga aklat ng karunungan. Edukasyon ating kailangan, kamamangan ating iwanan. Please!
Ating lilipanin, aming papabilin,
Ating tanawin,
bagong pag-asa ay muling tatanawin.
kinabukasan pag-ibayin. Pilitin mo gawin,
Pusang pagsisikap,
pag-asa ay yakapin.
isang
Edukasyon ang kayamanan ang kahit di naman. Isang pangarap ang tutupad, pagsisikapan ng lahat.
pusang pagsisikap,
Kaya mo yun, kaibigan.
mabubuo isang pangarap.
The child embodies our ultimate vision that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Teachers from DepEd Division of Davao del Norte once again. A very cold afternoon sa ato matag-usa sa ato diha sa kanya-kanya natong panimalay and schools.
Yes, and this afternoon po, before we will going to have our topic 4, will have again our energizer para ma-energize naman yung mga katawan natin from the output that we did or that we made kanina po. So,
And also, Ma'am Bing, it's a very cold afternoon. So,
yes,
dahil yan siguro kay Odette, ata Ma'am Bing, right?
correct.
So, si Mari mong Odette, andito na po. So, stay safe everyone and stay dry po. A friendly reminder from the DepEd Division of Davao del Norte. So, once again, let's have first our energizer para medyo magalaw-galaw na ito at mga kalawasan this afternoon. So, Sir Ash, take it away, Sir Ash. Mambing, our teachers are now fully energized for us to take over the presentations and topics for this afternoon.
Yes, umiinit na yung katawan, umiinit na rin yung mga utak.
I know, yeah, I definitely for sure know, and we definitely know for sure how our teachers felt right now while having their, I know, but still, it's a very productive day, I hope, for all of us. So, ngayon po, we're going to have our ruleta ng kapalaran po for the recap for tomorrow's recapitulation of today's event. So, Sir Ash, please do the honor of giving us the ruleta ng kapalaran. Alright, so kahapon parang ang ESP ata yung ano ma'am, no? The learning area that is responsible for giving us a recapitulation for today.
Yung kanina.
Yung kanina for yesterday's activity. Today, so for tomorrow's recap would be Sir Ash.
Recap will be presented by
Right, so we have the kindergarten.
Congratulations,
kindergarten. So I hope the facilitator will take over and take in charge of the choosing of the teachers for presenting to us tomorrow the recapitulation.
We will give the recap tomorrow will be coming from the kindergarten teachers.
And also for the facilitators, please make sure that before 12 a.m. Tomorrow, 12 a.m. This midnight, okay, 12 midnight, you will be able to send your recorded video for the teachers that will give us recapitulation tomorrow po. Ayan. So right now, of course, we need first to acknowledge Ma'am Ming, our dearest participants for this activity, as we head on into looking up the comment section.
Okay, but before that, we would like to thank again our setup designer. Yung studio designer po natin, the Generation Events. So for bookings, kindly message them at their FB page.
Right, thank you din po Sir Jens Binasbas of Dato Balong National High School for giving us a wonderful setup for the studio for this 3-day
Thank you, Sir
event.
Jens, and to his mother, okay, for the beautiful setup. And we would like to recognize, also shout out po sa mga school heads ng ating mga TWG from Alihal Elementary School. We have Ma'am Angelina Tagaro, the school head of Ma'am Cheryl Rayon. And we also have from Lumondong Elementary School, Ma'am Hazel Manigos. And then,
we have also from Macgum Integrated School, we have Sir Robert
Bayaten.
L. Bayaten. Yes po. Hi, sir. Ngayong hapon. We have also the school head of Sir Kirk. We have Sir Leonard B. Item of Liguyon Elementary School.
And Sir Asher Samsona of Asuncion National High School.
We have also Ma'am Lordeline A. Buyo of Carmen National High School. So
for Sir Jong Labisores.
Yes, thank you so much. I would like also to greet our principal for Santo Tomas National High School, Sir Ricardo M. Olmedo Jr. Hi, sir! Maayong hapon sa tuwa diha.
Ayun sa akin din, from Duhali National High School, Sir Joseph Henry Tuna. Hello, sir!
Yes, but right now, I guess, Ma'am Bing, I've just received a message that the ESP and the kindergarten are just the same group. So, since the ESP already gave their recapitulation.
Okay, so babalik tayo sa ating,
so, I guess we'll get another set of roleta for the learning area will be responsible for
the recap
tomorrow.
Okay, Sir Joash?
we have
From
the MAPE
department.
MAPE under Ma'am Lizelle
Posol.
So, the facilitators of, I guess it's Sir Irvin and Sir Joey, the facilitator for the MAPE, will be the one responsible for assigning a teacher that will give recapitulation.
Actually, we have facilitators talaga. But Sir Irvin and Sir Joey will be the one to receive the copy for the recap. To be given to us by the MAPE department.
And then once again, basig daghan og natingala diha nganong niusab mi yung recap. It's because ESP and kindergarten are just in the same group po.
Under po kay Ma'am Gloria.
Under kay Ma'am Gloria po. So, kaya inulit po namin, it's because tapos na po yung ESP na nagbigay ng recap sa atin kanina. So, yun po. Right now, we'll continue on acknowledging our participants in the group chat, Ma'am Bing.
Okay.
So, sino kaya yung mga nandito na?
Please use your hashtag
Please
po.
still use your hashtags, different hashtags from the different districts of the Division of Davao del Norte. We have from Asuncion, we have hashtag wow.
Ulyu Iduhali, please use your hashtag Dasi.
From Kapalong East and West,
Carmen,
we have hashtag Morpa.
And for Kapalong East and West, Mike.
We have from
Langilan
District, we have hashtag Lumalaban.
And of course, from New Corelia, we have here one district, one dream.
We have from San Isidro, we have hashtag Palaban.
Okay, for Santo Tomas East and West, hashtag Winner Ka.
We have from Talaingod, hashtag Shine. So ayan po, and that will be our attendance for this afternoon. So please take note of the attendance link so that you'll be able to have our attendance this afternoon. We have here Ma'am Dorothy Jean Liagas. Good afternoon po, watching from Santo Tomas National High School, Talos Extension. Hashtag Winner Ka. Ayan po.
From Sherwell, Sir Sherwell Gilban, hashtag Shine. Good afternoon. Watching from Paiton Integrated School.
We have from Jasmine Kaday, good afternoon, watching from Kausuwagan Elementary School of New Corelia District.
We also have here Ma'am Daisy May Arculio Ranera. Good afternoon sa all still watching from Anibungan National High School, Anibungan Carmen, Davao del Norte. Hashtag Morpa.
We have also from a random participant, we have good afternoon, watching from Santa Filomena Elementary School, Asuncion District Division of Davao del Norte.
Another, hi Bing and Marco, I really love your aura today, especially Bing. Lumilitaw ang iyong ganda sa screen. Congrats guys, ang galing nyo. Thank you po. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Umaantabay pa rin po kami mula sa Luna Elementary School, Kapalong West District.
Thank you po. We have another Facebook user. Good afternoon, everyone. Still watching from Libuton Elementary School, San Isidro District. Hashtag Basta San Isidro Lumalaban.
And we have here watching from Langan Integrated School, Langilan District, hashtag Lumalaban. At this moment of time, Ma'am Bing, I guess we're going to have another ruleta for the impression. But then we know already that tomorrow, the giving of impressions will be per learning area, Ma'am Bing. So we are going to have our ruleta ng kapalaran for us to know
the
sequence of the presentation of the impression for tomorrow.
The impression will be given during the closing program.
Okay, so yan po, Sir Ash. So again po, okay, Sir Ash, please give us the ruleta po. Thank you. Okay, the first to present tomorrow will be from the EPP TLE department.
Alright, so our next presenter for the impression, to give the impression. Alright, from
Mathematics.
Mathematics department. Okay, third. Third presenter, please.
Right, we have here from the science department. So right after mathematics po, we have the science. So after science, we'll have
Fourth presenter for the impression. We have here from
the kindergarten in ESP. So after kindergarten ESP, we have
Alright, from the MTB-MLE department.
ayan. So right after po, Kinder and ESP, we have the MTB MLE. Next!
Alright, from the English department. Sorry. Filipino.
Filipino department
Sorry.
po. So
Filipino department.
right after MTB MLE, we have the Filipino department po. So after Filipino, we have Araling Panlipunan.
Wow ha, si Mape. Baka pang last si Mape sa ngayon.
May babawi daw yung mape.
Kasi sila yung magbibigay ng recap.
Recap tomorrow.
Tingnan natin. Alright, so
Alright, the second to the last would be the MAPE department, and right after, the last one that will be presenting to us tomorrow for the impression, we have the English. So as I give you the entire sequence, we have first, once again, the EPPTLE, then right after we have the mathematics, and then the science, and then the Kinder ESP team, we have also, right after them, we have the MTBMLE, the Filipino, the Aralpan, and then we have the MAPE and English. Okay, so yun po yung sequence natin tomorrow. And also reminders to all the facilitators to please make sure that the length of your video for the impression will be maximum of 2 minutes lang po dapat. Okay?
that will be submitted.
Again, 12 midnight po. Okay, this 12 midnight. Tonight, 12 midnight and done po yung deadline natin for the video. Once again po, maximum of 2 minutes lang po yung video natin for the impression. Okay, since lahat naman din tayo magbibigay ng impression tomorrow. Opo. Okay, so make sure that you're going to submit that one to our TWG on this 12 midnight. Okay, tonight po. Okay, and now, as we head on to our speaker this afternoon, once again, we have here the member of, he is a member of the faculty of the University of Southeastern Philippines, Southeastern Philippines, and the director of the Quality Assurance Division of the University of Southeastern Philippines for his topic, Designing Contextualized Assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome once again, we have Professor Henry C. Encabo.
Okay, good morning po. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. I hope you have a nice evening. Then I see a thumbs up if you can hear me po. Those who are in Zoom. Ayan. Okay, thank you very much. Sometimes the technology is hindering us, no po. But I hope that all is well, so we can continue with our learning sessions this morning and afternoon for our workshops. My role this morning is to get you through thinking how we will design a a contextualized assessment task. This will be like an integration of what we have been discussing in the past few days, and I hope that you are still with us. This is the third day of the 5 days seminar workshop. I know it's exhausting, and I know it's minsan a little bit getting into our system already, but we are still here and we are committed to work with everyone, and I hope that will be a good and positive attitude in the next few hours that I will be with you. It's very important for us to really think and focus on our work. I know we are multitasking. Sometimes I get a lot of calls and messages even though I'm here, but we'll try to make do with what we have, and perhaps we can all accomplish our goals for the day. So ayan po. Let me share po my presentation with you. Okay. Ayan. My talk is about designing contextualized assessment tasks. In short, well, it's item writing. The idea of test development or assessment development usually involves design. And why am I using always the word design? Kasi ang dating term naman natin, item writing naman yan. The reason for that is actually not so many people realize that making an assessment task is actually quite difficult and challenging if you really put your mind to it. Some people would say, madali lang naman gumawa ng test. And I get a lot of comment from that, especially those not coming from the education profession. Madali lang yan, kopyahin mo lang yung nasa libro. Pero alam naman natin na tayo nasa teaching profession that is not the case. When we talk about assessments, we know that we are looking for what truly an evidence of whether our students are learning or not. So it requires us to think of a task that will stimulate or measure what our students have actually learned in the course of our discussions or in the course of our learning experiences. So ang pagdidesign po ay pinag-iisipan. And I like the word design because I would like to emphasize that making assessments is actually a design process in as much as making a lesson plan. And hindi lang siguro na-emphasize sa atin yan in the past because, write a lesson plan, write a test paper, ganun lang kasi ang iniisip natin. And what we will be doing today is probably something that is not you are used to. And perhaps you might say, hindi naman ganyan yung ginagawa namin sa paggawa ng test paper. Totoo po, hindi po ganito ang ginagawa natin madalas. But what I'm sharing to you is an experience that we had also with designing assessments, especially those that are being done by testing companies. Sa Pilipinas, we have, I think, 2 big testing companies who are really into education, and that's the Center of Educational Measurement, and the other one is the APSA. I think I forgot the meaning of APSA. And in my graduate program, we are tasked to have a practicum. Yung graduate program ko po sa sa master's degree, we have a practicum. We have a practicum in the Center for Educational Measurement, and at that time we were working on the I think it was a form of an examination intended for AL. So I learned a lot from there, and I learned from that experience that, you know, pag-design pala ng isang question, even the options takes a lot of thinking and a lot of testing. It's an iterative process. So somehow I'd like to take you to that experience. And what I will be sharing to you is something that what we do in our class, in my undergraduate class, when I ask my students to think through, kasi kailangan iti-training namin yung mga education students namin, teacher education students, to think, paano ba gumawa ng test item? Hindi pwede yung, hindi acceptable yung, okay, kukopya ka lang ng test item sa internet or kukopya ka lang ng test item sa textbook. Hindi pwede yun. Kailangan isipin mo, okay, what if gagawa ka? So we lead them to a thinking process, and that's what I'm going to have with you this morning. And this afternoon, we'll try it out. So please bear with me. This is a little bit, you know, but I think this is also something that can be useful for you, and that is also something that may help us really design a good contextualized assessment item or task. Yeah. Let me begin my sharing with a reflection. Ito yung i-share ko sa yesterday, as I was resting from our session, syempre open ko Facebook, titingnan ko yung mga post ng friends when I was with you and in the sessions, even though I'm not the resource person, I tend to work in the background with the different teams from USEP and DepEd as the activity team leader. And there are a lot of communications going on, so I don't really have time to look into my Facebook. So tinignan ko yung Facebook ko, and I noticed, di ba sa Facebook may post ka na 20 years ago, mga years ago na post, and inulit niya yung post ko when I was in the 2016 ISME. Ang ISME po ay isang international conference in educational measurement and evaluation. And during that time, the challenge was during the conference is to present ideas of the new assessment. Ang challenge sa conference is, okay, give us new ideas about the new assessment. And I was presenting a paper about my work with my students on scaffolded test questions. And there was a computer program that was developed from it, and it's called Scaffold It. And each time the student would try to answer the test question, hindi niya nakukuha, the student is being prompted by the computer to have a scaffold. And so eventually, around mga 70% to 80% of the time, the students would eventually get the correct answer. Ganun yung computer program. I was presenting that paper during the conference and telling people about it. But during that conference, there was also one of our resource person was Rachel Brugis. She is a specialist from Pearson Education. Pearson Education is one of the biggest test developers in America. And in Asia also, they have a big base in Asia, especially in China, I think, and Singapore. And she made 6 predictions about the future of education or the key changes in education. And that was 2016. At ito sa 6 na sinabi niya, ito yung isa sa mga sinabi niya. Sabi niya, there will be an increasing need for blended learning with teachers assisting students apply their knowledge rather than providing it. And I was reflecting on this thought, nga naman, how interesting. This is 2020, 4 years ago she said that. And here we are. Indeed, we are in a blended learning situation. And rather than teaching, providing, feeding our students information, there is a greater need now for us to apply knowledge. Kaya hindi na knowledge. Sabi ko nga, in my first session with you, ang contextualized assessment ay hindi na knowledge. No? It used to be knowledge. Gone are the days that we are testing knowledge. Gone are the days that we are just focusing on localizing knowledge. The challenge now is to have what we call as knowledge in use. And that's applying knowledge in a very contextualized manner. Applying integrated knowledge in solving real-world challenges in the terminology of PISA. Sabi ni PISA, di ba? Real-world challenge. So you see, that was said 2016, 4 years ago. And here we are. No? Here we are. That's our challenge right now. And I'd like to start with this because what we'll be doing, what we will be writing as a test item later on, we'll have to focus on designing sets of situations and questions that will really require students not just to deliver or express their knowledge on the subject matter, but the knowledge in use in your different learning areas. Can this be applied to all? Sa tingin ko naman, opo. Kasi hindi naman ibig sabihin na nasa thematic tayo sa early childhood o nasa PE na ano tayo na context. In fact, yung mga ano na yun, mga learning areas na yun ay very contextualized. We just have to find the right situation. And what we're trying to do this morning is to help you think through about that. Kasi dito yung minsan mahirap eh. Sometimes we are conveniently situated to our comfort zones that we just, okay, let's write the item, write any situation, write Juan, Maria, and etc. I think that's a very, very traditional way still of doing it. No? Things are changing very fast right now. No? With the onset of COVID-19, we realized that change is so quick. We are off guard. And we have to realize, sabi namin sa training namin sa future thinking, you have to realize that change will immediately be in one day, beginning right now. And so, ganun din tayo sa education kasi what if something will happen again and, we are required to change. So, mukhang kailangan din natin magbago ng paradigm. No? And that's what we wanted to say in this contextualized contextualizing assessment seminar and workshop. That somehow we need to change the paradigms, the old paradigms that we're doing, and we have to take it to another level. No? And perhaps this is a good reflection for us. Think about this. 2016, Miss Bruges of Pearson said it. 2020, here we are. We don't know. Maybe next year. 2021 rather, right now. No? Sorry, I was thinking 2020. Here we are. It's a different world, and maybe some more challenges will happen. Yan, pag-iisipan po natin. No? And so my talk will center around applying knowledge, contextualizing. Kasi naman, I think there's no need for me to discuss to you knowledge items. You've done that in the past. I mean, there's no point really. So in this seminar workshop, we'd like you to learn some more. No? Hindi naman may justice kung ang sasabihin namin are something that you have already learned. Okay? So dinadagdagan namin so that learning is always accumulating something new. Ayan. So my outline will be, of course, my talk this morning is not really too long, I hope. No? I'd like you to invest more time in really designing, asking questions. So there are only 4 areas. No? Number 1, I'll talk about the design framework. We talk about this in my first session, but i-review natin sa ano tayo kasi sabi ko nga nung nagsimula tayo, what we're doing is actually research based. No? Hindi po kami nagbibigay sa inyo ng something na out of the blue lang sa aming iniisip. No? We base our inputs here as though coming from what we have learned in our own work and in the work of other researchers. No? Sa USEP po, ang extension activity kagaya nito ay inisip po namin is a technology transfer, no? A transfer of research ideas to the users of research. And the users of research in this case is actually mga teachers and those who are with us in the Department of Education and USEP also. So we'll go back to the design framework, ano yung process natin. And then I will lead you through thinking through the problem situation. In contextualized assessments, there are 4 parts that we have to talk about. And we'll try to think about 3 of those parts, and one of that part tomorrow with Dr. Lindy Lulab discussing with you rubrics. Ayan. And on the third part here in my presentation would be about asking the right questions. They should have, I was thinking maybe not right question, maybe asking the real challenge questions, no? Ayan, or the challenging questions. So, paano natin iisipin yun at i-design? And of course, designing interpretable and ordered multiple choice question options. No? Kasi minsan, sa PISA din, meron multiple choice. Hindi ko lang na-highlight yun. Meron sila multiple choice. Pero ang options nila ay may design din. No? Hindi na dati, nagawa-gawa lang tayo ng if A is the answer, B plus 1 lang na sa math. Madalas ginagawa yun sa math. No? Na pag ang answer ay 5, minus 1, plus 1, plus 2. Ganun lang ginagawa ang options. No? Is that the right way of writing options in a contextualized assessment? Hindi po. Dapat ang options natin ay contextualized din. And there's a feature of that options which makes it interpretable. No? Dati, di ba, if we have a multiple choice option and we have 4 question rather, and we have 4 options, you have only 2 interpretations that can be derived. That is a 1-0 interpretation, right or wrong. Ngayon po, ang gagawin natin is that for every response ng student, from letter A, my interpretation. From letter B, my interpretation. Letter C, my interpretation. Letter D, my interpretation. No? So hindi siya 1-0, right-wrong interpretation. If you choose letter A, there is a reason. There is a microcognitive theory that is being used by the student. And usually that is in the form of a misconception or an error. And yan ay pag-aaralan natin. And we'll try to practice later in the afternoon how to write these questions. Kasi medyo ito yung ano. Although, to tell you honestly, itong number 4, for those teachers who are with us in Project InnoTeach, no? or those who are with us in the seminars and workshops that we have done, I think in 2018, and to some extent 2019, kasi we've been going around the Davao City Division. Naturo na namin to sa kanila. I think the Turil district in Turil area, Doña Carmen ba yun? I think we had, for all secondary schools there, we gave a talk about this one, and they were really trying this out. Sila yung pinakamalaking grupo na nag-try out nito. No? And then we had another from the writers in DepEd division. They try out nila, and they were saying na medyo lisod mag-isip there, if we try to do that. So these 4 parts, the one that we will be talking about this morning. Okay, so let's go to the first one. And this is our framework. If you can remember, I shared this one in the first session that I had with you. That is in the first day, in the afternoon session. So meron tayong 4 na processes that we'll undergo. No? Number 1, we set the target standards, which we have done that already. At kabahagi yan nung day 1 where we asked you to identify. No? Identify ano ba mga competencies na ita-target natin. Kaya nung day 1, we asked you, okay, kasi our expectation here is that when we had the discussion on the brainstorming with DepEd Region 11, the understanding is that all of the participants will have an individual and a group output. So we are really checking po whether those who are in NAYAP and whether those who are in in Zoom as virtual participants are really producing the outputs that that were told by to us that is required from you. So hinahanap po talaga namin yun. No? That's what I think the host was saying about earlier. So, and during the first day, supposedly you should have identified the competencies, but I think yesterday medyo hindi pa minsan na-organize yun ng maayos. Okay lang naman po. Pwede naman to catch up. It's not really something of a big deal. No? And yesterday, Dr. Cabanlit, Emmy, have taken you to a journey about unpacking, but realized na, unpacking is something that DepEd has already done starting during the pandemic when we were working with the milks, no? And it takes you back to that practice. It's like a revisiting, but at the same time, dinagdagan namin to contextualize. So you identify the important competencies, you identify the relevant content, the big ideas there. Although right now, balikan uli natin itong unpacking. No? And what is the relevant context? No? And I think yesterday you were able to state the competencies in a very contextualized way. Pero ang task po natin ngayong umaga is to talk about transforming those unpacked statements, no, na na-unpack ninyo now into a test item. But I was thinking and reflecting on your I don't know, what do you call that? SLMS? Your modules, right? The modules. I was thinking about the modules. Iniisip ko pa, baka pwede din gamitin to sa mga modules or output, baka when you revise or improve your modules to make them more contextualized, baka pwede nga naman, no? Especially the open-ended ones. No? Pwede din gamitin as, summative exams, if you like, or if I've heard that there are some divisions who are planning to have a uniform set or standardized assessments quarterly. So kaya po kinikater namin yung quarterly na idea because we were informed that meron din namang mga participants natin na gustong gawin ang ganung practice. So from Unpacked, we will now be talking about task design. And from that design, we would be considering four things and hopefully be able to construct an item. No? Pero may about siguro 50% lang yan kasi bukas gusto namin pag-uusapan uli yung rubrics. Kasi ang rubrics ay importanteng bahagi ng isang assessment, no? Task. So we reserved another session for that. So 50% of the workshop, no, will be done today and the other 50% will be done tomorrow. So sa 50% na ngayon, ang focus natin ngayong araw na ito ay ang problem situation at saka yung questions na gagawin ninyo. Or including if you are choosing to write a multiple choice question, the options that we are going to make. No? And bukas, if you are deciding a constructed response item or constructed or an open-ended task, the discussion on rubrics and I think Dr. Lula will introduce to you Ruby Star will also be helpful when you craft this the other 50% of the assessment design. So, ito yun. So, nasan tayo? Tapos na tayo sa dalawa. Pangatlo na tayo, right? Yan. Let me take you through to the 4 areas that are of our interest. No? When designing a task, it's like identifying a learning evidence. So, there is always the evidence statement. This is something that we do in outcomes-based education in the university. We begin when we make our course syllabi or even in our when we make our curriculum pala, when we make our curriculum, naka-identify na kami ng evidence statement sa curriculum pala. Then we make again our syllabus, we identify again the evidence statements. No? Tawag namin doon ay isang learning evidence. Or sa curriculum, ang tawag namin doon performance indicators. So for every expectation or learning outcome, meron kaming tapat kaagad. Okay, pag sinabi mong ganito, ano ang performance indicators nito. No? So, iniisip kaagad namin, ano yung evidence statement namin? Because we think, when you design a curriculum or when you design a learning plan or even a course syllabi or even an assessment, you'd have to be very sure that the statement, the assessment that you are making or designing is an evidence of learning for the outcomes, or in the terminology of DepEd, the learning competencies or the MELCs natin are aligned. No? Ibig sabihin, what we truly say we are trying to assess, the MELCs, are truly being assessed. Tawag po dyan, validity, no? In the very, the way we understand it. What we want to do, we actually do. No? Sa ISO, in quality assurance, ganun po. Anong sinabi natin, ganun din po, no? ang ginagawa. No? Our ISO auditors in the university, they do that. No? Tinitingnan. Pag nag-audit po kami, tinitingnan yung okay, yung sinabi mo ba sa curriculum ay ganito? Yun din ba ang nasa syllabus mo? Yun din ba nasa class record mo? Kasi dapat nagkaka-align yun. Anong yung learning evidence, yung evidence statement mo are consistently being applied from the curriculum itself downwards. That's what we should be doing also when we design any type of assessment. No? Lalo na yung curriculum-based assessment. Now, so number one, we'll talk about evidence statement. How do we do that? Later, we'll take you to that. And then we'll talk about context requirement. Ano ba itong context requirement? Well, this is the main topic of our discussion in this week. No? Iko-contextualize, parang nabungog na siguro mo sa word na contextualize. No? And you have this video that is being played by our DepEd team, contextualize, big words. No? Yeah, we'll think about that. And we've done that in the last, yesterday. Pero uulitin natin. No? Iulitin natin. Ngayon, yung statement yesterday, transform natin into a task, no? Or a question or a situation. Yeah. And then we'll talk about fairness and equity requirements. Dinagdag ko ito. Initially, I did not really plan to include this one kasi I'm not really sure if there is a fairness policy in DepEd. No? But I asked around, meron din pala kayong GAD and inclusion policies. I'm not really sure if that is being translated into assessment. But I'd like to tell you that somehow it should. Kung may inclusion policy tayo or inclusive education policy or may fairness policy tayo sa DepEd or may gender and development policy tayo, GAD policy sa DepEd, that should apply to our curriculum and to our assessment. In USEP, our GAD, yung Gender and Development Office, is actually very active in asking all the professors to be GAD compliant sa kanilang mga syllabus at kanilang mga assessments. No? So, ibig sabihin nun, we are conscious of gender issues and gender fairness in assessment. And dati kasi merong nangyayaring stereotyping. No? Pag sinasabing engineer, lalaki yun. Pag sinasabing teacher, babae yun. Di ba? No? So, pag sinasabing teacher, bakla yun. Merong mga stereotyping nangyayari, ganun eh. But if we want to be, that's now actually part of gender fairness, no? And that's part actually of assessment. So baka naman we're stereotyping our young children to be something that they're actually not supposed to be, no? Pag mag-example sa math dati, why is it that Maria always goes to the market and Maria always goes to the washes the clothes, and why is it that always si Juan always does the job that is supposed to be na panlalaki, no? Parang na merong ganung mga examples dati, but gradually it has been changing in the past years and up to now. And the more conscious we are of that also in our assessments, kailangan din natin i-apply yun. I'm thinking also inclusiveness. No, my friends in the College of Education, we have very strong advocates of universal design. No, I think meron ng universal design yata sa ating seminar workshop, no, kasi although wala pa yung I think sign language sa baba. In the College of Education, during our orientation with our students, meron ng ganun, no? May text, may nagsa-sign language. Yeah, that's that's universal design. No? I think they can talk better about that one. Is that to be included also in our assessments? Baka pwede kasi we don't know. Some of our students have actually special needs, and maybe our modules would have probably to be adjusted a little bit to accommodate their needs. No? Or the design can be more universal in that aspect. Ganon din sa assessment. Kung pwede bang ganon? Kung pwede, maybe we can try to consider that one. But of course, that depends on the context that you are working in. No? Hindi naman sa lahat ng pagkakataon that you are going to do that. But I'm not really sure how DepEd tries to integrate those things in the assessment and in the modules as well. And of course, we will begin to design the features. Are we going to make a multiple choice? Are we going to make a open-ended? Sa ngayon po, dalawang format lang pag-uusapan natin. We'll not talk about true or false, all other test formats that we have. Hindi natin pag-uusapan yun. Those are things that you already know. So I suppose there's no point of repeating that one. Pero i-repeat natin konti si multiple choice. I-repeat natin konti. Not really the details that you have learned in your undergrad. I don't think that we need to do that. No? Dagdagan na natin ng konti. No? Especially in the test option. So, in your workshop also later this afternoon or later, you will produce two things. No? One open-ended question and one multiple choice item. No? And that is an individual work for everyone. Individual po yan. Hindi po yan group work. So individual because, as I have said, we're trying to count how many are really participating. I think I was told that the DepEd team in NAEP are actually monitoring that one, checking out whether the outputs are being submitted or not. No? Ayan. So, ito po yung design aspects na pag-uusapan. Isa-isahin po natin. Okay? Number one. Okay. Now, we'll work. Ang example na natin, I'll work and discuss with you sample from the work of my students. No? And although ni-revise ko kaunti, to make it fit to what we need today. The sample is taken from a grade 10, first quarter in mathematics. No? And this is the content standard, as you can see, demonstrate understanding of concepts in sequence, polynomials and polynomial equations. The performance standard is to formulate and solve problems involving sequences. Pero ang MELC na pinili ay yung solves problem involving sequences. No? Now, ganito po yun ang mangyayari. No? You have to choose also the MELCs that you are working on. But you do realize while working on your MELCs that not all of our MELCs are actually ideal for testing, no? For a written test. Some of the MELCs that we have are actually very performance oriented. Although what we are doing may probably still, no, yung open-ended aspect, pwede ba nang gawing i-transform into a performance-based assessment? Wag po nating ipilit pag hindi applicable. No? Alam ko po lalo na sa PE, sa like halimbawa, create an artwork. Mahirap po yun sa sa test, di ba? You can't do that in a test. So maybe the more appropriate assessment there would be a performance-based assessment. Pero dapat contextualized pa rin. Di ba? So here, I hope you will choose, no, in your work later, yung pwedeng nating gawing assessment. A written examination or written summative test, no? Or something that we can put in a written module as part of our summative assessments in your modules, no? So choose the learning competency that you are really would like to work on. Yesterday, kasi when I was going around, I saw some groups are choosing actually mga more or less performance oriented na MELCs, no? And okay lang naman 'yun kasi nag-a-unpack lang naman tayo. Pero ngayon po kasi ang focus natin is writing really or designing the assessment task. So choose the one which is appropriate also for our exercise and our learning activity, no? So ito po yung basihan na example ko, and I'm using the form. I'm just cutting the parts of it. You have your worksheet number 3 and 4. We'll be using the same worksheet for day 3 and day 4. No, meron lang part doon na magkaiba, the rubrics which you will fill in tomorrow. And this is part of what you will see in a sample. I'm also giving para hindi malito. Ano? Kasi yesterday I noticed na nagkakagulo sa worksheet, no, and how to fill it up. I'm giving you today a sample. So meron ng example paano siya na-fill up. So you can look at it, okay, this is how we do it, how do we do it? No? Sometimes we learn from examples. And from those examples that you will fill up, ito yung gagawin. The first part actually takes you to identifying a MELCs that you're going to work on. In this case, sa content standard, marami, di ba, pinag-uusapan sa content standard, may sequence, polynomial equations. That means pag pinag-uusapang sequence dito, may idea na ng algebra, no? Hindi siya purely yung sequence na counting na sequence, no? Usually, ang sequence starts with counting at the very young, early years, no? And then it becomes more of pattern, and pattern becomes more algebraic. And when you do work it in college probably or in higher mathematics, it becomes more of a distribution, no? Kaya naman nagsisimula po yung mga, like for example, a binomial distribution. And if you look at the performance standard, the performance standard actually ng DepEd, I really appreciate our K-12 curriculum when we started innovating and putting and segregating ano yung content standard at performance standard. Napakaganda po ang performance standard because ang performance standard po ay madalas nakikita ko po tina-target ang real world challenge. Ano bang real world challenge? So, somehow the big idea is already in your performance standard. Kailangan lang i-contextualize from the different setups that we have from where we are, no? And then, kumbaga, pag sinasabing performance, yun ay something that the students can do with what they know. Diba? Yun ang sinasabi natin, knowledge in use. Something that they can do with what they know. It's not just something that they know, right? So this is one first part that you will see. So you have to fill it up. Of course, you have done that yesterday. So copy-paste nyo lang. Dali-dali lang nun. Now, if we go forward, di ba ang first step natin is, balikan natin yun, making the evidence statement. How are we going to do that? There are a series of questions that we will be asking ourselves. So, number one, what is the important big idea based from the content and based from the performance standards? Pag sequence, ano bang importanteng idea? What's the big idea? What is the big idea why we teach sequence in grade 10? What is the big idea when we teach composing and decomposing numbers in grade 1, for example? Bakit anong importante na? Why is it there? So there has to be a reason why it's there in the curriculum. Seldom do we think about it, but it's actually very important when we want our items to be contextualized. Kasi the reason for being there is an important idea that should make us contextualize our assessment task or our learning packages or even our course modules. Somehow I'm not sure if when you're trying to create your modules, big idea is being talked about. No? But I'd like to encourage you to talk about what is the big idea here. Bakit bakit inaaral natin itong concept na ito sa science? Bakit inaaral natin itong concept na ito sa MAPE, or inaaral natin itong concept na ito sa English? No? Bakit may reading sa English? No? Why is it important that when students read, they have to, identify the details? No? Bakit importante yun? So what's the big idea there? Is it something related to a real life experience? Kasi pag contextualized, ganun ang connection natin. In real life ba, paano to? Bakit kailangan itong mag-take note? No? And you realize, sometimes when we read in real life, sometimes you retain some ideas. Not all, but those are some kind of mental note-taking. Or kahit ako, I sometimes write it down, lalo na pagka it's something that would really interest me. Kaya nung listening or even watching, no? Like when I attend conferences, I listen to people talk, and not all the topics that in a conference are actually interesting, but there are people whose ideas are parang right moments ba. So I write it down. I usually type that in my phone, in a note, or sometimes even in paper. If I have paper, I write it down and try to remember that, post it somewhere. So that when time comes back, and bumalik yung 2016 ko, I was thinking, nagkatama si resource person namin that time. Sorry, I have to drink water. May tama si resource person, no? Na the idea in 2016 is actually real right now. So, yun. Sabi niya, applying rather than, providing knowledge, helping, assisting students apply knowledge. And realizing from our experience sa university, ganun na nga no? We are more of assisting kasi the knowledge that we give to our students are actually things that they can already read. So how do we assist them? Then yun ang problem namin sa higher education. No? We have a learning management system, a module. We have paper modules. If students need that, they can print that out. They can download our course packs, or tawag na kagaya ng modules na nasa inyo, or reading materials if in case walang course pack. No? They can download, print, read. So it's like providing them knowledge, but how do we assist them to make sense of what they read, to understand what the material is all about that is being given? Yun ay assisting, but the other part is assisting to apply. That's another thing also to think about, no? And so second question is, what are the unpacked statements? Nasagot natin yan yesterday. So balikan natin yon, no? So yung na-unpack nyo, magagamit, that's what I'm telling you. Nung na-unpack nyo, gagamitin natin ngayon kasi yun ay importante. We're taking you step by step along the development process of what we call as a test development process. No? Itong process na ito, sabi ko nga, hindi invento namin. It's an adaptation from the work of evidence-centered design by Ms. Levy, and an application of that in contextualized assessments by Pellegrino and you. So I think I put that as resources in my, you can Google those authors and you will see that what I'm talking about is actually based on that idea. No? Then we'll review the requirements of the content and for performance standards, and then we'll write the evidence claim. No, the claim of what is the evidence that the student is actually learning that particular competency. Okay? Example tayo. Example. Okay. Ito yung sa namin sa. Okay, let me minimize a bit. Teka muna kasi I cannot show the whole text. Okay. Yan. Okay. So, ito yung example na sinasabi ko with the things that the assessment design that my students have made. These are their answers. I revised it a bit, the wordings to make it better. Yeah. So this is how they wrote, no? And thought about the So remember, ang MELOC nila is solve, problems involving arithmetic sequence or involving sequence. But sequence have different types. Merong arithmetic, geometric, no, and other types. They focus on the arithmetic sequence kasi hindi pwedeng sabay-sabayin mo yun. Medyo malilito yung mga bata if you work with all the sequence all together. So they said na we'll work on arithmetic sequence muna, sir. No? So what is the important idea? And they explain it this way. And I like the way they explain this. No? Sequences are useful in real life because they are used to make projections or predictions about what comes next in a pattern. You know, there are many things in life which are actually patterns. For example, in design, halimbawa, even if you look at our indigenous design, no? Pag-usapan natin yung indigenization, look at yung mga weavings ng ating mga kapatid na tibuli, no, or kapatid ng mga lumad. Look at how their costumes, no? There is a mathematics there in the pattern of the designs. Take a look at those designs. Di ba may repetition at iteration yun? Kung itra-translate mo yan, that is actually mathematics in nature. At one time, I was in Malabo, joining our Vice President for Research when we are asked by Sara Duterte to go there to discuss the idea of having USEP in Malabo. I was there and we were entertained by a group of lumad dancers. Yung authentic, hindi yung mga natuto lang mag-dance about the dance. These are, you know, the elders of the tribe dancing. And I was watching them dance. At nakikita ko nung nagsasayaw sila, iniisip ko, there is mathematics in the way they dance. Kasi the rhythm that is being used, the music that is being used, has a pattern, has a sequence. Paulit-ulit yun paulit-ulit. And when they dance also, there is also mathematics there because the movements tend to be repetitive and at parang may sense of what do I call it? A range, no? Parang may diameter na parang may range or diameter kung saan nagse-center siya sa center of gravity ng isang tao. Something like physics. I've not really thought about going into that deep, no? Pero magandang tingnan yun Sa arts ng culture natin, sa PE, when I went to the PE group and you were talking about arts, inisip ko, baka pwedeng mag-integrate si math at saka si arts kasi nakikita ko sa arts may math doon Hindi lang nakikita ng math arts teacher yon. At ang problema, hindi rin nakikita ng math teacher yon. But there is. If we talk about sequence, one aspect of sequence can be found on the artistic side of things. Kaya sabi ng mga estudyante ko dito, this leads to the idea of efficiency in planning ahead, which may be useful in the field of designs, like artistic designs or engineering. Di ba? So sabi nila, ang sequence ay importante because it's actually about being efficient in real life kung nagpaplano ka or about making projections or predictions of what comes next in a pattern. And patterns are everywhere in our life. Even in human behavior, there is a pattern in human behavior. No? So, di ko lang sure kung arithmetic sequence yun or anong sequence yun, but there is. No? So, yun ang big idea. Sabi nila, when you try to contextualize, you have to think, nga naman. Diba? From here, you will already see that saan pwedeng ma-contextualize ang idea ng sequence. Pero pag hindi mo inisip yung big idea na yon, you might just end up translating things like, sabi ko nga, Atis to Apple. Those are contextualization still, but you're limiting yourself to the idea of knowledge. You're limiting yourself to the idea of knowledge. Go to, as I've said, knowledge in use, or the idea of, integrated knowledge. No? Then we copy yung unpack statements. Yung unpack nila, marami silang in-unpack dito. Pag dalawa lang kinopya nila, you don't need to write all the unpack statements that you have. You only need to choose the one you will work with. At yung i-design mo lang. Kasi halimbawa nito, pag in-unpack nila tong sequences na to, maraming ibang sequences. So they have to write each statement for a different type of sequence. Sometimes in the English group yesterday, I challenged them na model for this one and this one. There are 3 types yata yung pinag-uusapan nila. I think this should be separated. Now, if it is possible to integrate all the 3 in one task, okay lang. Pero sa math kasi, nare-realize namin na minsan kailangan i-separate mo yung idea, no, ng arithmetic sequence with geometric sequence and other types of sequences. So ito yung na-unpack nila dalawa. Pag sinabing solve, ang focus nila yung solve problems, the bigger and more important one. They're not focusing on the trivial ones, no? They're focusing on the big ones, and these are the 2 statements that they chose, no? Solve problems involving arithmetic sequence in an engineering scenario. Yun yung tinuro ni Dr. Cabanit yesterday, di ba? To state our unpack statements in a very contextualized way, no? And then illustrate solution to engineering problems, solution ideas to engineering problems related to arithmetic sequence. No? So, bakit may illustration? Kasi if you can recall, no, i-recall natin yung performance standard. Yan. Ano ang sabi ng performance standard? Solve problems involving sequences, blah, 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 through appropriate and accurate representations. And they said, sir, naamang nasa performance standard that when every time you make the solution, it is something that has to be represented. So they said, tama na naman, sir. No? Not all solutions in a mathematical problem can be solved using only by formula. Sometimes students solve in a different way, like i-illustrate nila and they figure out the problem. Is that not a valid solution? It is still a valid solution. In fact, yun ang sinasabi naming equity. Kasi if you force only one solution to other students, where there are also other valid solutions, you're restricting the student na isa lang ang posibleng solution sa problem. Sa totoong buhay, marami pong possible solutions sa isang problem. And we have to, if you want to say more contextualize yung assessment natin, we welcome, different solutions to a particular set of problem, no? So ayan. So illustration of dalawang pinili nila. But take note, di ba, yesterday, Dr. Cabanit also led you to idea that when you unpack, may prerequisites. No, may prerequisites kaya tinuro niya pababa, no? Pababa yung if you are in applying, you go to understanding and you go to knowing, no? Or kung nasa analyzing, you go down also. So that you can unpack what are the prerequisites. The prerequisites are very important later on to realize that actually may relationship siya sa na-unpack na main statement. At yun ang nakita ko kay ma'am sa math kahapon, math group. She was saying na actually related man, sir. True, kasi, di ba, when you solving itself, we don't know that may involve a lot of other prerequisite skills. Halimbawa, solving a problem in arithmetic sequence may actually involve una, determining the arithmetic means, or finding the end term, or determining the sum, no, or just merely illustrating it. So these are prerequisite skills necessary for a student to solve. Di mo siya pwede mo diretso mag-solve. Right? And that has somehow to be captured in your assessment also. So importante na identify natin. Ito yung unpack na ginawa ninyo. If we are successfully done this yesterday, then we should have been able to copy-paste na lang natin yan. No? Now, here's the thing. We're going to make an evidence claim. An evidence claim is the statement that will tell us what is the evidence that the student has really the mastery or the competence as required by our MELCs. So ito yung sinabi nila. Okay, what is the statement of evidence nila? Students demonstrate or competence if they, number one, can solve problems involving arithmetic sequence in engineering situations using appropriate and accurate representations. It is a far departure from your MELCs, and it is now a more specific version of your MELCs. Kasi evidence ng pinag-uusapan no? Tingnan natin. Sa MELCs solves problem involving sequences lang. Medyo broad 'yon. 'Di ba? So ano ebidensya nun? Ito yung sabi nila. May ebidensya na na-master ang MELCs na 'yon or competent na ang bata sa MELCs na 'yon if they can do this. Remember, the idea is doing, not just knowing. What they can do with what they know. So ito yun, do, solve, pero mas detailed siya. No? Engineering, may context, at merong method at or tinatawag naming criteria, no? That they must use appropriate and accurate representations. So ito yung sinasabi namin sa sa outcomes-based education, kung nagdi-design kami ng curriculum sa university, it's a performance indicator. No? It's a performance indicator of what the students can do. Ayan. Now, the second requirement is the context requirement. Okay? So the context requirement, dalawang questions i-ask natin dyan. What is the identified context? Although kanina, with the big idea, we identify the engineering, but engineering is a broad concept that can be applied to many different localities. No? And then what is the real world challenge? Now, my students actually, the ones who were working in this task or designing this task, actually live in Davao City, and they live somewhere doon near the Buhangin area. I think many of them live in the Buhangin area, the group, no? And some may not have lived there, but have knowledge about what is going on there. And so they chose the idea, no, of the context of a future context, hindi siya present context, although may present din idea, the future context in a STEM-related career, for example, engineering. And what they explained here, that ang context that in building construction, an arithmetic sequence can be used to determine the number of installations, like how many chairs is needed, or how many lights, kung lights ang pag-uusapan, how many lights. Those are what we call as installations, sabi nila. And for example, sa work nila, chairs, no? And they said they wrote an additional context. In Davao City, people have been clamoring for a stadium. There is an ongoing construction of the KJC Kingdom. Kanang dome dina sa may diversion road owned by Pastor Apollo Kibuloy's church. No? They own that one. And they are knowledgeable that it was claimed to be the world's biggest dome or arena in terms of area. No? In terms of area, that was na-news yan na-news. So they know that one. So they chose that particular context to work on. It's very specific kasi something na relate nila yon, engineering, pero yung workout natin ay application doon sa dome na yon. And they decided, then they again examined that idea. Ano ang real world problem doon? Ito yung guide na natin ngayon sa question, kasi pag nagtatanong tayo ng contextualized assessments, dapat ang question din natin may bearing sa real world problem. Hindi siya basta inventong-invento lang. Although sometimes we need to simplify things to let our students deal with problems in a more simple way. Okay lang naman yun. No? Pero here, they chose this one. No? In planning, sabi nila, engineers may want to establish a sequential pattern for aesthetics purposes. So they may want to find out, like, number one, how many installations like chairs they have to make, or make projections if halimbawa mabago yung area, mabago yung dimensions ng kanilang project. Ano din ang changes doon sa installations na gagawin nila, sa lights, sa chairs. No? These are the real problems that engineers are working on. Ito yung mga essential real-world challenge. So the idea here, when you write this one down, you are now thinking of a real-world challenge that your question may be situated in. No, so a stadium is often constructed with sequence numbers of chairs as the inner space is always smaller than the outer perimeter. Di ba ang stadium, kung pabilog yun or rounded yun, the inner part is always smaller than the outer part. No? So you can see there parang may trapezoidal pattern siya. Sa baba, sa base, medyo maliit lang yung ano. And the upper part is actually wider. So if there is a sequence on the arrangement of chairs or lights, for example, sa baba, mas kukonti, sa taas, mas marami. But you cannot just put in lights. Maybe there is a pattern of putting lights or chairs out there. So they believe na they will assume in their example later that the arrangement is an arithmetic sequence. So mathematical application of a mathematical idea. So you see, from here we can realize na when they thought of it, when they thought of designing this item, they integrated a lot of ideas. Number one, may cross-cutting feature siya, pwedeng pang engineering, but in particular in construction. But in particular about sequence, about mathematics. Who would have thought that the idea of a sequence like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, which is a sequence, an arithmetic sequence, has an important application in engineering. Pero inisip nila, inaral nila yon at tiningnan nila, ano bang pwedeng paggagamitan nito? Sometimes, we are limited to asking, okay, what's next after 2, 4, 6, 8? Okay yun, pang bata eh. No? Okay lang yun kasi ganun naman pagsimula. Pero as you go higher, grade 10 na ito, you need to put more the abstraction part and the application part because they will soon be going to, halimbawa, ang assumption nila nito ay the students that they are working with would be STEM students. I think they did that because most of our math majors in the College of Education are actually coming from STEM, no? So masyadong narelate sila. So hinayaan ko lang kasi yun naman talaga ang nila, no? So they said that kaya dito din ako namamaha sa mga K-12 graduates natin. They're very creative, no? I've not seen this prior to K-12. And when dealing with K-12, I said there is an important aspect of K-12 which makes them think more maturely. No? Para sa akin, that's an effect. Hindi ko lang ma-describe in a very, very detailed sense. Pero I could probably give you an anecdotal evidence that there is a big change on the quality of students that is brought about by the K-12 system. Kaya nung I was listening to Director Alan, nang sabi niya that there are people who want the K-12 to stop. No, I was saying no, that's a very wrong idea kung i-stop nila yung K-12. As a teacher, in the higher education setting, I could tell you that it's very helpful for us. Although right now we are also worried with the fact that the challenges of COVID-19 may again, regress the quality of students coming into the university. That's another thought that we are also thinking. No? Ayan. So ito yung pag-iisip sa context. No? That's the way they think of the context. Then we talk about equity. Okay? Sa equity naman, ito yung dinagdag ko kasi si Sir, I think somebody from the group yesterday told Sir, what if walang materials? Ito na yun. Kasi sa assessment, may equity principle po. Ano po yung equity principle? And that every time you have to make an assessment, you have to make sure that every student has the opportunity, regardless of his ability, no, regardless of how good he is, the student has the opportunity to show his or her knowledge and understanding on a particular learning content or competency. No, yun po ang sinasabing equity principle. Sa principles of assessment, no, maraming principles at isa sa mga pinaka magandang principle that is being talk about right now ang tinatawag na equity principle. That means kung mag-assess daw tayo, dapat lahat ng bata has the opportunity to answer that, no? And there are a lot of dimensions dyan, no? Number one, it promotes it promotes having different levels of opportunity. So the question like, how should assessment provide opportunity for all, no students are left behind, to demonstrate their learning? And usually nasasagot to if our items are open-ended. Kasi sa multiple choice, wala masyadong equity doon eh. Wala masyadong equity doon. Although you can see different levels of understanding, but you are not open to the possibility that there are other forms of answering it or other ideas of answering it, which may be correct still, but are it would be a different approach, but would still provide a valid answer to the problem. No? There might be many different, kaya nakikita nyo sa PISA, the one that I give you example, di ba open-ended sila? Kasi ang idea nun, kahit di masyadong sophisticated ang knowledge mo on that particular topic, you still have able to provide some kind of an answer. Yun nga lang, minsan mali, minsan but in a way, when you do analysis of the results, you will see that where our students are. Kaya ang tinatawag ni PISA doon, partial credit model allows you to psychometrically, ang statistics nun, to identify different levels of performance based on different levels of response. So may interpretation bawat level ng response. No? And if you know the response pattern ng bata, you will know how to remediate and intervene. We will know, okay, ito yung level ng bata. So we will know how to deal with the child. Later, I will show you how that will work with a multiple choice question. Pangalawa, how do we consider fairness in policies of DepEd? Ito, I'm not really sure. Kaya lang nilabel ko yung fairness kasi baka iba-ibang translation nun. Like, I was thinking, meron bang God policy inclusion or inclusiveness policies? Do we include ba that in our assessments? No? Is that part of what we do? As I have said, as I have shared in the university, we are encouraged to have God, our God policy to be gender fair in our So as much as possible, we avoid stereotypes. No? And ito yung pinaka-importante ngayong setting na ito. Sa assessment ba natin na gagawin, are the materials that we required available to the students? Halimbawa, ang assessment mo will require some materials. Or computer, pero wala namang computer ang mga estudyante natin. So is that equitable? Di ba? So tanungin natin yung sarili natin bilang mga test item writers. If it's not equitable, kahit maganda yung item mo, the student will not have an opportunity to perform at his best or her best, to the extent that he or she really knows about the competency or what the student can do with that particular competency. So, nababawasan yung competence niya kasi wala siyang materials. So yun dun ay consideration sa pag-design ng test items. The different thing about contextualized assessments is that it is more sensitive to the equity that is required in the particular context. Kaya nga sinasabi natin equitable Equitable na kaya nga sasabi natin contextualized. Kasi ang contextualized responsive siya sa need ng student. Responsive siya sa conditions of the student. No? Kaya there are, sa amin sa university, we call that flexibility. Sometimes we said, pwede kang mag-submit by, during nung first outset of the pandemic, we don't know how to do it. But we realized, halimbawa, may requirement kami na ipapasa. Like, I require my class to write a set of statements about what they believe for me to assess ano bang beliefs nila about assessment. No? In some way, asking them to synthesize what they have learned, no? in the course. Traditionally, I ask them a paper. Yun naman sa university, you write a paper. Pero nung nag-pandemic, some of our students really have difficulty with submitting. No? So anong ginawa namin? Some pwedeng i-text. Some, well, you have to call. Sige nga, let me listen. Read to me your writing. Tinawagan at pinakinggan ang writing. And pwede na naman yun. Or ni-record yung conversation para at least maalam mo at balikan mo when you rate a conversation again. So that's equity. Ito yung kailangan nating pag-iisipan din when we think of assessments which are more contextualized. So ngayon, meron tayong module. Nandun yung assessment. Tama naman yung module, equitable yun kasi wala silang access to technology. Pero pag nangyari naman, yung pinapagawa natin sa module, ay wala din silang access sa materials, it makes the modules less equitable. Di ba? The same with assessments. If you are giving assessments na naka-contextualize nga yung story and problems, pero pagdating naman sa materials na kailangan sa assessment, hindi na din equitable yun kasi hindi naman nila magagawa. Right? So they are not able to perform the assessment because they don't have the resources to do so. So you have to think about that when you design an assessment because that is more important now in having not just thinking about the standards, not just thinking about the situation, not just thinking about the problems to address that what they have in their own place. No? Yan po yung sinasabi nating equity requirement or equity principle in assessment. Ayan. Now, ano example nito? Halimbawa, may question dun eh. So, how should assessment provides opportunity for all students to demonstrate their learning? So, ito ang sagot ng mga estudyante ko. The task should have open-ended questions kasi they believe that the open-ended questions would enable to show different or alternative demonstrations of understanding or solution. So, number one, sabi nila, answers derived from purely illustrations and inductive reasoning are acceptable. Ibig sabihin, kung nag-answer gani ang estudyante, drawing, and still come up with understanding, acceptable yun. Acceptable answer yun. Now, answers na purely formula lang, kasi ang estudyante, mas sophisticated yung understanding at gumagamit na siya ng formula and algebraic expressions, acceptable yun. Although, yun yung ideal natin, no? Ideal. Pero pag iba yung answer niya, drawing lang, inductively, tama din naman yun eh. No? And usually kids who have less sophisticated mathematical understandings do not use symbolic means to express their knowledge. No? They use drawings, illustrations. So you encourage your students to answer that way. Pwede naman yun eh. Some you know, I'm surprised with some students actually. If you look at, I've also taught in the basic education sector for many years before I went to the higher education sector. No? I have really good students. No, when I was still a high school teacher, and some of them are actually very successful. Some are really into science. No, I have a student who is already a material scientist, and she's living in the US. No? Scholar from the Philippines, hindi na bumalik. So sad, you know. When I tried to work with them before, I could recall that they have different solutions which somehow iba sa tinulo ko, pero ina-accept ko yun eh. They interpret our session. And for me, these are valid answers as well. So kung naging fixated ako na teacher, I would insist only in one way, one solution to one problem. But the reality is, in the real world, problems have many different solutions and students will come up with different solutions. Kaya ito, in-imagine nila, no? Pwede yung, sabi na, illustration lang, pwede yung formula, pwede din yung combinations of illustration and formula. Huh? Although hindi na sila, ang comment ko sa dito kanila, hindi nila sinabi, what if there are still others? Can it be acceptable? And you just evaluate them if ever it is valid? Pwedeng sabihin ganun. And they were saying here, how can we address fairness? Okay, use gender fair language. And so far, yun lang naman sinabi nila. But sa atin naman sa DepEd, pwede nating tanungin, what are other policies na kailangan natin i-consider? Like materials, are we going to consider that? So lagay natin yun, lagay natin. Because that will now create an idea of ano yung itsura ng item natin. You see, while brainstorming all these details, you are now beginning to shape. Una, dapat nasa engineering, dapat working on a construction like stadium. But then there is a requirement to be open-ended because we want students to say how they answer and approach the problem in different ways. And we also want them to be fair, to the language to be fair so that there is no stereotyping. Kasi madalas pag engineering in stereotype, di ba? Engineering is highly stereotype a course. Although we have a lot of women engineers, there are very few women engineers coming in at the higher levels of mathematics and STEM courses. Kaya sinasabi nga ng I think it was one of the Western countries, there is a gender difference there. No? The more you go to more higher mathematics, the more lesser daw the women. Pero sa Pilipinas kasi tingin ko mas more equitable doon, no? Between women and men sa mathematics. Sa College of Education alone, I think sa math, no? Halos pantay lang ang number nun. No? But if you go to the engineering, you will see all men, almost all the men there. So yun ang medyo hindi pa, and it's not good for us in the basic education to stereotype early. So dapat ang language na gagamitin natin will also encourage young girls to go into STEM. Kasi di dapat malabel na babae ganito, lalaki ganito. No? Yan. That's part of assessment as well. The social, political part of designing tests and assessments. Typically, ang isang contextualized or knowledge in use assessment, as we call it, has 4 parts. No? One is a real-life problem situation. Sa lens ng isang multiple choice, tawag natin ito, iyon yung mother STEM or yung STEM na nagbibigay sa context ng buong problem. It's usually a situation. Research has shown that if you put in a situation, actually the students can create mental models which they can relate to. Rather than asking a question directly, which is very abstract in terms, hindi niya ma-approach yung problem na yon that is related to how he constructs the reality of a concept. No? So, may gap sa students' understanding at sa kaniyang at sa katong requirement natin sa assessment. So in order to assist our students create a better sense of understanding about the particular concept, we have to put in a situation. No, it's a problem situation or problematic situation na ilagay natin. If you remember yung GRASP, I hope you're familiar with the GRASP model in performance-based assessment. Diba meron yung G, goal, R, role, A, audience, S, situation. The situation, ito po yun. No? Bakit nire-require sa GRASP ang situation? That is to provide context. And in order for you to have a contextualized, dapat may problem situation ka talaga. And then there's the question of what is the real world challenge. Kaya kanina, brainstorm natin, what is the real world challenge? Sabi natin, when they determine how many chairs. So your question should be about like something like that. Like, how many chairs should there be in an area, in a given area? How many should I install in that area? That should be how it is. Yun naman ang problema ng engineers, di ba? Yan. Now, if open-ended constructed response, dapat may rubrics. Okay? May rubrics. Yung rubrics pinula ko kasi di ko explain yan ngayon. Dr. Lindy Lulab will explain that tomorrow. Okay? And then if multiple choice naman ang gagawin natin, dapat ang madalas yung isang contextualized assessment, lalo na if you look at the PISA, interpretable yung sets of options. Although PISA did not publish how they come up with the taxonomy. But I will share to you a taxonomy in how it can be done. Now, let's take a look at the problem that one of the problems. No? I asked them to make a lot of problems. This is one of the problems. No? As a project engineer in Hayahay Plastic Company, you have been tasked to create and design chairs for a stadium. So you see, lahat ng brainstorm nila kanina pumapasok na. The area that you'll be working on looks like the illustration below. So na-provide sila ng picture para ma-visualize ng estudyante. But it's only a partial picture because the chairs are not there. So by then, they are only telling the student that this is the area that looks like it's up to you to put in the chairs. Diba yun yung real world challenge? Sa real world challenge, you have some kind of information, but you don't have all the information. And that creates the problem. So, nung tiningnan ko tong problem na to, napaka-intelligent ng gawa ng mga batang ito. Parang, siguro naman, sa bagay, when I could tell you that we've been, sa klase ko kasi, we brainstorm. And we brainstorm more than once, twice, no? Ganun. And I always keep on pushing them to the idea na, I think there's something better out there. So think again. No? So they would think again and they would come up with always a better idea. And I think they've come up with a better idea. Ang problem naman sa totoong buhay, you have some information but you don't have all the information. Diba? That's very contextualized way of saying it. No? So your task is to make sure that the stadium will be occupied with seats and will allow people to move freely from the sides. Anyway, one area naman pinatrabaho sa kanila, hindi buong stadium. The number of seats that will be put in each row of the stadium is increasing from lowest to highest. Kaya sinasabi ko kanina, kung nasa baba yun, konti lang chairs nun. Pero habang tumataas ka, that now leads to more number of chairs. And the information is that there will be approximately 12 rows in this area. Yeah. So malaki yung stadium po, 12 rows, ang haba. No? Ayan. Now, what are the questions that they made? Ito na yung ginawa nila. No? So, what we do in here is that we align the unpacked statements to the item. Kasi dapat may alignment sa item ninyo, sa unpacked statement. Remember, solve problems. Ito yung unpacked statements nila. So, here's the problem. How many possible seats can be installed in the area if the common difference, ito na yung, hindi na sinabing arithmetic sequence. Common difference indicates na arithmetic sequence yun, no? Of the number of seats from the lowest row to the highest row is 3, 4, or n. Na may n pa, hindi, although hindi ko na natanong bakit may n pa, but I think they were trying to impress the idea that it can be done algebraically, not just by purely numbers. Take note that there is a lot of information, again, not here. Like, for example, there is no number to begin with in the sequence. So that will now require the students to make his own assumptions of the, that will also, kasi open-ended siya, require the students to provide many different answers. Kasi ang tinitingnan naman lang nila dito is how the students solve. It's not whether they get the correct answer, but whether the solution is in fact enough to merit that they have shown competence in this particular competency. No? Although at the end of the day, the answer would really matter as well. Pero minsan, sabi ko nga kanina, kasi may equity principles silang kinoconsider, the students may also answer this and approach this at a very, at a level where they can just draw the answer. Pwede naman nilang i-drawing to. And then they can also use the formula. That's Pero take note, nilagay nila dito, in order for the student to actually solve the problem, may prerequisite skill. Kaya yung problem ni ma'am kahapon, when I went in sa and I was listening there, na tama yun ma'am, tama yung iniisip mo ma'am, that some of the prerequisite skills are actually subsumed in the higher level of skills. Lalo na sa math, makikita po natin sa math na MELCs po, some of the more higher level competencies like solving actually subsumes the different competencies which are earlier stated in our curriculum. No, unique feature yun sa math. No, I'm sorry, by the way, sabi ko nga, I can only give you a math example also because I'm in math. No? Ayan. So nakikita ko po na when we are working with students, ang math MELCs po, may madalas ganong feature, no? May pagkasunod-sunod. I think that's because the idea in mathematics that skills tend to be on top of one another. So if you go higher, the higher, the more complex the competency is, it will naturally subsume some, not all, some of the prerequisite skills or competencies. So for example, in this case, ganito po. No? You can add more if there are more that you can actually think. Pero it's important na i-identify natin kasi sa solving maraming ways ng pag-solve. Is it finding the nth term. Ito in this case, finding the sum. No? Ayan. And illustrate ideas. Ito yun. Sinabi ko nga kanina, illustrate and explain the process of getting the total number of seats in the stadium if you are given the authority to decide the dimensions of the chairs that will be installed. Dinagdagan pa nila ng problem. Kung halimbawa daw, i-consider mo yung gaano kalaking chair. Yan. That's how they think of it. Now, however, sometimes you may also want to make a multiple choice question. No? So halimbawa, ang question mo, gusto mong dagdagan kasi gusto mo ding matingnan whether they really know how to get the arithmetic mean. And it's very important for you. Sige, okay lang naman. Hindi naman problema yun. So may task ka. If there are 6 seats in the first row and there are 18 seats in the 5th row, how many seats are there in the 3rd and 4th row? Diba? Ganun ang multiple choice. Contextualized pa rin yun kasi meron ka ng situation sa taas eh. Diba? Your situation here is defined. This is your problem situation. From your problem situation, you are now beginning to align each competency, no, the unpacked competencies that you have, doon sa, or the unpacked statements rather that you have, to the items that you are trying to assess. So ang isang buong situation may have more than one question or items that you are dealing with, no? And okay. Now, eto na sinasabi ko. Paano yung options? Remember, I told you that the options did not be 1 and 0 and can be scored in different way. I will be sharing to you a taxonomy of options. Kung may taxonomy po ang cognitive levels or cognitive domains, kung may taxonomy po yung sinasabi nating affective domains, at kung may taxonomy din po sa psychomotor domains, meron pong taxonomy of distractors or options. And this is based on the idea, on the research done by Pearson Testing Company, or the Pearson Education, and one of the authors of the many, or I think the lead author is Mr. King, and this was published in 2004. Ganito po yun, may 4 na levels po yung taxonomy na yun. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and Level 4. And this is applied in many subjects, but so far, ang nakikita ko na pinablish lang nila is yung sa science, reading, and mathematics. No? I have seen kay Harris using this one in science, no? By the way. So sa level 1, ano yung level 1? Ito yung mga purely conceptual error or misunderstanding. Ito yung mga sagot na madalas maliit, showing very little understanding or purely just a misunderstanding. Kumbaga, conceptually, they don't know how to answer, or sometimes they would just answer based on their previous knowledge or prior knowledge. So, yun yung level 1. Madalas ang score dito pwedeng gawing 0, no? Pwedeng gawing 0 if you start with 0. No? It is the lowest score that you would probably have to keep. No? By the way, sa scoring ng ganitong type of multiple choice, ang score niya hindi 1 or 0, kundi ordered. Kaya ang minsan ang tawag po namin dito ay isang ordered multiple choice. No? So the scoring is like a rubrics kasi ang scoring niya based sa level ng response. So pwedeng 1, 2, 3, 4 or 0, 1, 2 or 0, 1, 2, 3. Pero dito sa example ko po, ang ginawa po ay 0, 0, 1, 2. Ibig sabihin, pag level 1 at level 2, 0 ang bigay nun. Pag level 3, 1. Level 2, 2. Yan ang scoring system. No? So, bakit po ganun? Kasi studies will also show that ordered multiple choice lends to more reliable results compared to a 1-0 scoring system. Bakit po? Kasi the more distance or variance that you generate from the response, the more the standard error of measurement can be generated and therefore closer to each other. And that also results to better reliability in the part of the statistics behind computing the reliability of your test. No? Halimbawa, gagawa kayo ng, halimbawa si Mati Division, nagagawa ng test that is uniform or standard to all the schools in the area. Tapos aaralin nila yung reliability. Mas reliable po, based on research findings of many authors, mas reliable ang scoring ng tinatawag naming ordered multiple choice kesa naman po 1-0 na scoring system, no? Kasi ang variance doon mas nakaka-capture no? And the more variance that you have, the better the picture of the standard error you will get, no? So level 2 is yung initial understanding. These are students who have some understanding. And level 3 or weak or inconsistent reasoning. And level 4, this is the correct and complete answer. I will explain each one so you will understand. No? By the way, hindi always scoring ng 0, 0, 1, 2. Nilagay ko lang ganyan kasi sa tingin ko, pag level 1 and 2 talaga, dapat 0 yun eh. Kasi medyo mali yun. Pag level 3 kasi, these are partial understandings. Ibig sabihin, they have some things that are right. So they should have partial credit. No? But maybe because for some reason, inconsistent or being careless, they would commit the mistake. You know? And madalas yan sa math nangyayari, yung mga careless answers. And I will show you an example later. Ayan. Ano ba yung level 1? Ito yun, conceptual errors and misunderstanding. These are those who commit error in decoding and retrieving information. Ibig sabihin, ito yung mga estudyante who cannot connect the given ideas and tend to focus on just one. No? Madalas, the answer not coming from what they have read or not coming from the problem itself, but coming from their prior knowledge, which is often unrelated to the problem or has very little relation to the problem. No? And implement strategies and reasoning not related to the task. Yun yung level 1. Yung level 2 understanding may actually have some correct. So they are usually the students na at the beginning, tama ang approach, pero along the way around, siguro 1/4 sa kanilang trabaho, the rest mali na. No? So 1/4 tama, 3/4 mali na. Parang ganun ang idea. So they may correctly understand the given information, but tends to be literal or focus on superficial connection. Ito yung mga estudyante na pag may tanong ka, maghahanap sa question mo as clue at kukunin yung part sa question mo as the answer. Diba? I don't know. When I was still in high school, I used to do that eh. Hanapin ko yung answer sa mga question mismo ng teachers. Sometimes I get it right, of course. Most of the time I get it wrong. But siguro ko mga teacher kay gitagna na nila nga kini mangita ra ni diri. But really, if you don't understand, di ba? If you don't understand or know how to answer the problem, di ba? Pag managna ka, sure-sureon po nimo na managna ka, mangita ka dito sa given. No? So this is usually initial understanding that reflects na hindi mo naintindihan, wala kang alam. No? But partially you may know something so that you tend to be literal. Sa reading, ganun, literal yung interpretations na nangyayari, no? Sa English, even sa science, no? They may know the operations to solve the problem. Ito yung sinasabi ko, they may know how to do it, but there's no clear framework. As a result, they implement, flawed or incorrect steps or process or strategy. No? Or they know the framework pero na-misapply nila, mali yung application nila. And sa level 3, ito yung weak or inconsistent reasoning. No? Uses a correct method, tama ng method nila, framework, but comes up with an incomplete response or response may be too narrow or too broad or not too accurate or precise. Or uses inconsistent reasoning that results to, ito yung pinaka-description ng level 3, almost having the answer correctly. If it is almost having correctly, it's a partial credit. No? And tends to commit errors by being careless or by being inconsistent. Let me show you some examples. Ito yun. And of course, the level 4, well, we don't need to discuss that. This is an example, not really from contextualized assessment, but I'm showing you an example how it is done, for example, in a multiple choice. Halimbawa, there's a passage entitled Frogs and Toads. No? And this is a reading example. So, this is by King, not by me. No? And sabi doon is that may statement, no? May passage. Both frogs and toads have a tail at first that disappears when they get older. The question is, which word has the same meaning as disappears as it is used in the sentence? So this is a test for vocabulary. Na halimbawa gawin nating level 1, 2, 3, 4 ang options. Ito yung mga options. Level 1, option letter A, disagrees. Bakit? It's not really related, but medyo ka, look alike or sound alike. It's not, di ba, ang level 1, remember, ang level 1 answer is usually the ones na talagang problema ka sa conceptual understanding. And if you know you have a level 1 student, what would you do as a teacher? You'd have to reteach, right? So you see, if you design your multiple choice ganito, it will provide information how you will intervene or remediate your Nabasa ko po yung memo ng DepEd Davao City yesterday because a friend of mine, participant from here, sent it to me, no? And they said it was said there that you do a summative assessment because you want to remediate the student. But you cannot just remediate the student without knowing what to remediate, di ba? So if you design your multiple choice assessment in such a way that it will give you information about what to remediate, then alam mo paano mag-remediate. And in day 5 on the seminar workshop, Dr. Roar Kalyaman and Dr. Kiel will help you process data, assuming meron na tayong data sa assessment na ito. Pag ganito yung format natin, ma-identify natin kung anong level of errors or you will do an error analysis that will help you understand ano yung pwedeng gawin sa mga estudyante natin. No? Pag level 1 yung estudyante ko, ulitin kong magturo, reteach talaga yan. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, they don't know. Now, if I have 50% of my class ng level 1 ang understanding, I would be very worried and I would really try to reteach the subject matter. No? Pero pag may level 2, halimbawa, dito ang level 2 niya nasa letter C. It's not necessarily letter A, B, C, D, 1, 2, level 1, 2, 3, 4. Hindi po pwedeng ma-jumble yan kasi di ba sa multiple choice may naman may pattern of arranging your options, no? So halimbawa sa level 2 instead of synonym or same meaning, ang ginawa niya antonym. Di ba? Level 2 is partial. May sense siya na understanding that he was trying to find out the meaning, but instead of doing that, naging antonym ang niya. So, like, can be seen. Ayan, no? Pwedeng ganon. Sa level 3 naman, ito yung level 3, magandang paggawa sa option ito eh. Level 3, ang answer is becomes small. It would seem na tama nga naman, when you become small, it disappears. Pero it's not precise, di ba? It's not a precise answer. Kaya tinatawag yung level 3 a partial answer or an incomplete or a weak answer. So anong gagawin mo pag may level 2 ka? Pag may level 2 student ka, remember na ang weakness niya ay talagang nandoon sa process, no? Sa process niya, paano ma-connect ang information na ibigay mo or kung sa math yan, paano yung correct process. So again, pag may level 2 student ka, focus ka sa process. Pero pag may level student ka, anong gagawin mo sa level 3? Ang level 3, may understanding na ito. Kaso nga lang, hindi pa complete. So what are you going to do? You can probably give drills, exercises, which will help them refine and practice. Kasi ang problema sa carelessness at saka weak reasoning is practice eh. Alam na nila, you don't have a problem with the concept. They know the concept. It's just that inconsistent sila doon. So to provide more consistency, you provide drills, you provide practice, you provide worksheets. So now, if you have this design in a multiple choice, you have now differentiated instruction. Alam mo anong gagawin. Traditionally, sa multiple choice natin, gawa-gawa lang tayo ng option dati. Like, pag mag 5 ang answer, -1, +2, -3. Then, A, B, C, D. Pero anong interpretation nun? Wala. Wala ka may interpret nun. Only the right and the wrong answer. What are you going to do with the right and the wrong answer except say that they are right and they're wrong? So it now improves the idea of, alam ko ginagawa nyo to sa DepEd, identifying the least learned competencies. Because you are not just identifying the least learned competencies, you're now identifying why is this the least learned competency. Kasi ni-level up mo yung options mo sa multiple choice. And ito now ay more contextualized. No? Ayan, I'll give you another example. Ito, madalas na question to sa reading, what is the main idea of the passage? Diba? Madalas yan. You might be familiar with the answer kanang ginaingon na to best answer variety. Actually, ang best answer variety po can be traced to the idea of this taxonomy. If you have a best answer variety, di ba, ang lahat doon sinasabi natin tama. Pero bakit may tama at mali pa rin? Kasi yung mga sinasabi nating ibang tama na mali ay actually weak responses. So if all your distractors are essentially level 3 and you have level 4 only, then you have what we call as a best answer variety of a multiple choice. So sir, pwede ba ibig sabihin na walang level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? Hindi necessary. Wala naman nagsasabing kailangan kompleto. Wala naman nagsabing ganun. Pero take a look at this perspective, no? You want to assess the student because you want to help the student, right? Nag-a-assess ka because you want to help. How would you know saang level ang estudyante mo if hindi mo nilagay yung different levels? Siguro may purpose lang si teacher sa level 3 because maybe she believes that the best way to assess this this part of the competence of the student is to have a best answer variety. There's no judgment there. Tama naman. Madalas ginagamit sa board exam, best answer variety. Diba? Pero pag gagawa tayo ng best answer variety sa ating multiple choice, make sure level 3 lahat yun. Okay? And then you have a level 4. Ito sa math. Ito naman sa math. May diagram. Hindi ito contextualized. Ito yung traditional math multiple choice. But just to show you how it's being done. So halimbawa, what is the perimeter of the rectangle na ganito? So you have level 3, correctly apply the Pythagorean theorem but failed to double the length to account for the full length of the side. Ito being careless eh. Being careless lang tong level 3 na ito. So you probably pinpoint that to the student that this is being try to be more consistent next time in considering pag meron kang length problem na Pythagorean, double mo yung the other side kasi ito rectangular naman ito, no? So yan, consider that. So bigyan mo ng maraming drills at practice estudyante para ma-address yung gap na yun sa learning niya, no? Level 1, ito yung level 1. Yung level 1 madalas, halimbawa pag may problem ka ganito, anong number na makikita doon, i-add lang yun. Kasi hindi na alam anong gagawin. Basta given 13 plus. Ayan, add ko lang lahat. Yun na yung answer. Level 1 kasi hindi niya alam talaga ang gagawin. It's a complete conceptual misunderstanding. Yun yung level 1. Yung level 2, tingnan natin level 2. Applied the theorem but confused the concept with area with perimeter. So instead of perimeter, ang ginawa niya naging area. So my understanding ba si level 2? Yes, but it's actually very weak in the sense that na-misapply niya yung concept ng perimeter at saka area. So yan po yung tinatawag nating interpretable option. So you see, pag gumawa tayo ng multiple choice at meron tayong ganitong options, we know what to remediate. No? We know how to intervene because it does not only tell you the idea na ito lang ang saan lang ang hindi masyadong natuto sila. But bakit sila hindi masyadong natuto sa competence na yon or competency na yon? So di ba maganda yung So if you notice these options, no? O ano ba ginawa ng mga estudyante ko? Balikan to natin, no? Ito yung ginawa nila. So if there are 6 seats in the front row and there are 18 seats in the 5th row, how many seats are there in the 3rd and 4th row? So letter A, sabi na level 1. Level 1 kasi disumpay lang is estudyante 6, 7, 8. Following 6. Yun nga, wala talagang understanding estudyante. Just, series of 6, 7, 8. Level 3 response kasi ang sagot niya 9, 12 ay tama yun. Pero hindi yun ang 3rd and 4th. Yun ay ang 2nd and 3rd. So again, careless answer. Level 2, medyo tama, pero yung nagamit niya na D or common difference is 4. And of course, letter D, yung tama na answer, which is the common difference, is D. So that's how you make a multiple. So you see, you have now a multiple choice with very interpretable response, no? Options na response. These are what we call, in other terms, a semi-dense item, no? Or items that have microcognitive theories for every option that they have. Ang mahirap po nito is not only pag-iisip sa question, but ang pag-iisip sa ano ang magiging options mo sa question na yun. Okay? Ayan. Oh, yeah, I'm done. So you see, balikan natin. Along the way, we have think through, no? Merong 4, no? Ang real life, pag sinasabi natin contextualized assessment, you always have a situation and a problem situation. And the real world challenge related to that situation. And if kung open-ended yun, rubrics, and kung multiple choice yun, an interpretable set of options. Yan, tandaan po natin yan. And pag ang multiple choice natin ay interpretable yung options, pwedeng maging basihan yun ng remediation natin sa Department of Education, sa ating mga schools, or even sa ating mga divisions and districts where we belong to. Or even sa region, if the region would wish to do that also. Ayan. So that's all that I would be sharing to you this morning. I think we have time for questions.
Alright, thank you so much, Professor Henry C. Incabo, Professor of the University of Southeastern Philippines.
Alright, so before we'll proceed to our breakout session, we will have first, may I call on first our division facilitator, Ma'am Melanie Dayaday, Master Teacher 2 of Sagayan National High School, to give us the clear tasking about what to do with our output for today. Ma'am Melanie.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon po sa inyo mga gwapo at magandang host natin for this afternoon.
Salamat sa inanap, ma'am.
My task this afternoon is to explain to everyone the expected output that we have this afternoon. So, our task for this afternoon is the item D3 for day 3 and 4 about may I ask the TWG if it is possible in this platform that I can share my screen so that the participants can see kung unsa ako ang ipang present po, especially the template. Is it possible po?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, would you be able to do screen sharing po, ma'am?
Yes po. Katong day 3 and day 4 na test item prototype na document po.
Ay, do you have the ma'am? Do you have the file po, or the file you've sent it already to the TWG, ma'am?
Yes po, nandun na sila sa sa mga materials po.
Ma'am Durdas, ma'am?
Prototype day 3 and 4 na prototype test item.
Again, 4 quotas.
Is it possible po?
Yes, ma'am. It's possible to share your screen. Alright, so I guess Ma'am Melanie is still not here, ma'am. So once again, teachers, do not forget to have your attendance this afternoon para po ma-record sa TWG of you attending this second day of our training and workshop seminar for contextualizing assessment across all learning areas.
And also, please update your outputs po because that will also be the basis para po makareceive kayo ng inyong mga certificates.
And also reminders to the participants and also the facilitators na the facilitators will be the one to check na lang po your outputs, and the facilitators will also be the one to send the link of the Google Drive to the TWG para kamo na daw ang facilitators mag-check sa mga outputs per district po and per learning areas rather.
Okay, so I guess Ma'am Melanie is already ready to explain the task for this afternoon. Ma'am Melanie?
Okay, thank you po, ma'am and sir. So my task this afternoon, dear participants, is for you to understand what we are going to do this afternoon at our breakout session. So this is the template of what we are expected to do. So the direction for this template is to design an item assessment task, which is gi-explain kanina ni Sir Incabo kung saan na to siya pagbuhat. So you have to write here the name of the writer, the learning area, and the grade level. So this can be downloaded through your access this template. Okay, so you write here your learning area and the grade level that you have chosen nga himuan ninyo og kanang assessment, no? So contextualized assessment. So letter A, information about the standard. So number 1 here, you write the quarter. So kintahay pili lang mo, no? You have the freedom to choose kung unsa, but it is better that kung unsa to inyong gigamit sa first day sa pre-packing sa milk, mo pud inyong ibutang dire. So the grade level from kinder to grade 10, no, or senior high school. And then what quarter do you choose? Then you write the content standard here, copy paste lang ninyo kung unsa tong milk na inyong napili, and then the performance standard i-copy paste pod ninyo dinhi. So again, I will advise you nga kung unsa tong competency nga inyong gigamit since day 1 o katong kaganina sa pag-unpack o sa paghimo og TOS mo pud ang inyong ibutang diri para naatay continuity sa ato ang output, no, di ta maglahi-lahi og content standard and performance standard, as well as the most learning competency. Sulat pud nato siya dinha, i-copy paste gihapon nato, no. And then letter B, diri sa evidence statement. So the first day of our webinar is nag-discuss si Sir Incabo about what is the big idea. So you're going to write here katong inyong na-accomplish sa day 1, nag-identify man ta og milk, and then unsay big idea ato nga certain nga competency nga napili ninyo. So i-review lang nato kung unsa ang big idea. The big idea is katong knowledge in use, no? Katong knowledge nga dili lang siya memorize kundi the outcome unsa may atong gi-expect sa mga bata nga mahatag nila sa community, no, katong magamit jud nila ang idea. And then here you're going to write the unpack statement. So kaganinang buntag we discuss about the unpack statement. So ang katong milk nato ato siyang gi-unpack. So tan-aw nato ang skill, kung unsa ang skill nga gipangayo sa competency, and then you're going to break that out into prerequisite skills. So example, kaganina ako lang balikon, no. Example, our skill is about the susuri or analysis. So ato siyang i-unpack into analysis is ikaupat mo na siya sa Bloom's taxonomy. So atong i-unpack muna ugta sa lower level sa Bloom's taxonomy. So ang sunod sa analysis is application. So ato siyang i-unpack, magbutang ta og kanang prerequisite nga application, and then i-unpack pud nato siya into understanding and into remembering, no. So isulat pud nato, pili lang tag isa ka unpack nga idea dinha, no, dili na nato isulat siguro tanan, pero kung gusto ninyo naara pud na siya sa inyo ha. So isa or duha ka mga unpack statements ato ang isulat din ha from our day 1 katong first nato ang activity yesterday. And then prerequisites atong isulat dinhi unsa tong mga prerequisites nga dapat na before nila na learn ni siya nga ang tax statement, unsa dapat ang ilang natun-an before you're going to discuss this at tax statement. So dapat na ay mga skills diri nga natun-an na nila before sila na mo proceed ta dinhi nga competency. And then you're going to write here the evidence. So giingon ganina ni Sir Incabo, klaro kayo iyang giingon that knowledge in use is dapat evidence based. Dapat ang assessment is authentic, kanang makita, ma-observe nato no kung unsa gyud natun-an sa mga bata. Dili tong memorization lang, katong kuan lang kanang sa hangin lang nga kuan, dapat authentic jud makita nato ang evidence. State nato kung unsa jud ang mga evidence ato ang makita sa mga bata sa base sa ato ang para makita gyud nato kung nasabtan ba gyud sa mga bata ang competency. Okay, palihog kog baba, sir. Letter C na po tayo. Next po. Okay, letter C, context. So, based dito sa katong MELT ninyo, unsay context, no? Unsa ang context sa imuhang sa MELT, no? So, unsa kaha ang naa sa community na pwede nato matudlo based dito sa content standard, performance standard, and the MELT nato, no? So, ibutang nato diha ang context. And then, what is the real world problem? So, ang knowledge in use nato or the big idea is naka-base gyud siya sa real world problem. So, mura siya gitawag nato nga outcomes-based education, no? Kay tungod kay ang ato ang natun-an sa mga bata kinahanglan i-apply jud nila into the real world. So, they can solve real world problem, no? So mag-abot man ni silang context of real world problem, no? So kinahanglan makasolba jud ang ato ang mga natun-an sa mga bata sa mga problema sa society. Okay? And then letter D, applying equity principle. So when we will karon ang ginadusog gyud sa ato ang division office is kung maghimo tag activity design is the equity principle, no? Equal opportunity principle. So we're going also to apply that principle in making and constructing assessment. So please po saka po sa sa letter D po. Okay, thank you. So, applying equity principle, how should the assessment provide opportunity for all students to demonstrate their learning? So, unsa ka nato pagbutang diri kinahanglan naka-state din on how we are going to give opportunity to everyone, no, to everyone to demonstrate their learning. So this is not only dili dapat kanang no size fits all, no. So dili kung halimbawa ang mga bata is dili gyud sila hawd kay sa written, no, sa written assessment. So mohatag jud ta og kanang another assessment that fits them. Let's say for example, they are good in singing, in dancing, no. So dili jud ingon nga isa lang ka type of assessment ang ato ang ibuhat para sa tanan. So kanang murag gitawag nato differentiated instruction. So unsa kaha ang mga posible nga different types of assessment na pwede nato din na mahatag regardless of the status of the children, ilang intellectual capacity, ilang gender, o unsa man ang ilang mga religious beliefs. So inana, so dapat dili yun na siya matandog din no. So everybody should be given the equal opportunity. And then here we also have to address those kanang i-address nato ang fairness and equality as required by the DepEd. So availability ba sa materials ato ang mga modules kay modular man tano. So what else also is another thing na pwede nato mabuhat in order to establish fairness in conducting that kind of assessment. Okay, next po sir. Letter E na po tayo. So here, we're going to establish now the item prototype. Maghimo na ta dinhi og test question. So duha ka buok ang ato ang himuon, no, nga test questions, no. Multiple choice question and multiple choice question and open-ended, no? So duha ka buok. So mag-focus lang kita dito sa ato ang napili nga ni unpack nato ang statement ug ang iyang prerequisite kay moto ato ang buhatan og test item question. So sa amo ang seminar, gipahimo lang mi siya at least isa lang ka multiple choice item question following the taxonomy of options, no? Dili na ta pwede mo gamit atong all of the above, none of the above, or either letter A or C. So wala na to siya, no? Dili dapat yung ato kay para makuan nato ma-measure jud nato ang mga bata, no, nga mo gyud nakasabot jud sila. It is because they have natumbok jud nila ang correct nga answer. So dili na aron sayon na lang pud sa ato nga mo conduct or maka-identify og least learned competency. So that is the wisdom of in ana nga klase nga assessment. So you're going to write your problem situation here. Naman to sa taas, no, nasa taas na unsa inyong problem situation. Unsa problem, so inyo lang nang i-copy paste din he. And then unsa tong imuhang napili nga unpack statement. Unsa to isulat, i-copy paste pud nimo din he. And then you are going to write item, task, or question. So kung multiple choice, maghimo kag STEM. And then yung katong 4 options. So naa na sa imuha naman tay level 1. Ang level 1 is mali gyud siya, no, 0, dili gyud siya tama nga option. So kung mo to'y pilion sa bata, so pwede ka mo hatag og kuan sa iyaha remediation, no? Remediation kung nganong katuyang ganyan. So meaning wa gyud siya kasabot sa imong gitudlo. Letter B is 25% tama, 75% wrong. So inana ato ang pagkuan, so murag lang siya og kanang gitawag nato og murag pangkapi sa ilahan no nga kung nakasabot ba gyud ni siya. So kung halimbawa ang gi-answer sa mata is level 2, level 2 nga option, ang ilang gi-answer meaning nakasabot siya gamay pero kinahanglan siya og remediation. And then ang letter ang ikatulo, ang level 3 nga option is katong gitawag nato 50-50, no? So nakasabot. So muna siya ang mga bata ang kinahanglan nato og enrichment activities, no, og remediation. Kung mo na ilang gipili. And then the level 4 is mo gyud ang tama nga answer. Tama nga answer. So kung asa na ninyo siya ibutang level, no, either A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D kayo patraman jud na siya, no. So nakabahala na kada kung letter A ba nimo is level 4, letter B ba nimo is level 2, letter C ba nimo is level 3, and ang D nimo is level 1. Ana sa imo saan mo na siya pag-rumble. Okay? And then this next is ugma pa man ni siya, no. We're going to do also one open-ended type of test, no, in which kinahanglan nato ang rubric, and ugma pa nato ma-discuss kung unsa ang rubric. So so far karon ang atong buhaton is kadi lang sang multiple choice item test. So diha lang siya taman. Okay, I hope na I was able to explain the task properly, and if you have some questions, how are we going to address this? Maybe ang ako mga kauban nga facilitator pod, pwede po sila explain sa inyo, ha, or maybe we can hop into other breakout sessions para ma-entertain ang inyong mga questions. So I think that's all I can do for this afternoon. Have a nice day, everyone.
Alright, thank you so much, Ma'am Melanie P. Dayade, Master Teacher 2 of Sagayan National High School. Ma'am, daghang salamat po for giving our participants a clear vision on what to do. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Alright, so I guess as of this moment, Ma'am Bing, for further clarification and questions, we have our different facilitators in each learning area. So we know it already that our facilitators in each learning area can give us also the clear vision on what to do. So if you have a lot of questions with regards to what Ma'am Melanie explained already, so pwede na to pahatag sa to facilitators. So again, Ma'am Bing, so I guess this concludes our plenary session for day 2 of Division Seminar Workshop on Contextualizing Assessment across all learning areas. So, once again, I am Rene Marco M. Sulamin.
And I am Trinidad Agudo.
And see you all sa breakout session. Goodbye and have a great afternoon, everyone.
glad you stayed.
It's time for me to come on home. Guess I'm on my way, yeah, baby. So hard to see that a woman like you could wait around for a man like me. Guess I'm on my way. I'm mighty glad you stayed. Oh, girl, I'm stuck with you. Midnight train tomorrow, and I know just where I'm going. I packed up my troubles and I'm throwing them all away, 'cause this time, little darling, I'm coming home to stay. Stuck on you, I got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. I needed a friend, and the way for now, I guess I'll be with you till the end. Guess I'm on my way. I'm mighty glad you stayed. Oh, girl, I'm stuck with you, and I can't stop loving you. I've been a fool, girl, way too long. Stuck on you. Oh, girl, I'm stuck with you, and I can't stop loving you. I've been a fool, girl, way too long. Stuck on you. Oh, girl, I'm stuck with you, and I can't stop loving you. I've been a fool, girl, way too long. Stuck on you. Guess I'm on my way. Stuck on you. Mighty glad you stayed.
Hi there, Sir Wilbur here, and I will share something valuable to make sure that you will be Internet awesome. Have you ever posted something in your social media account and later have regrets in posting it? Of course, you can delete it, but it is also possible that someone might have read it before you removed it. Do you share memes or funny videos for fun? Have you considered that someone might get offended? The convenience of using the internet has become part of our daily lives, which helps us communicate, share photos and videos, and post something about ourselves easily. But in the online world, we need to be extra careful. We need to have the ability to control what information we will share about ourselves and whom we will allow to see and reshare it. And that refers to online privacy. Your name, home address, phone and mobile number, social security number, and email address are your personal information. It's a good idea to make a rule for yourself not to share this kind of information online. Aside from keeping your personal information, we must also take care of our reputation, because these are the ideas, opinions, impressions, or beliefs that other people think or have about you. We must also consider what others will feel based on our posts. Different situations call for different responses, online and offline. It's always important to respect other people's privacy choices, even if they aren't the choice you'd make yourself. Also, be careful with the simple codes that you send, like emojis, because it represents a certain meaning or message which may uplift the reader's emotion or the other way around. Have you heard of the word oversharing? It refers to sharing personal information or just too much about yourself in a certain situation or conversation online. What's the risk? You might become so familiar in doing it that you are unaware that you are already sharing information about your private life. This is harmful not just for you, but also to your loved ones. The internet can be a safe or a dangerous place for us. It will really depend on how we will utilize it. Take time to think and read your post a couple of times before you share it in the World Wide Web. And remember, it's better if you will always think before you click. But it's best if you will share with care.
Here in the division of Davao del Norte,